Hello and welcome to Getting Started with Google Earth Engine. This is going to be our first video and it's going to be an introduction to Earth Engine and the types of things that you're going to be doing with Earth Engine. So I'm going to give you just a brief overview of what this software or what this application is for. Essentially what it's for is to do remote sensing analysis on different data that we already have currently available, and sometimes this data is just too much to be able to work with one piece at a time or on computers that we have. And so what Google has done is they've set up a large processing platform that's available through their website or through their application, Google Earth Engine, that allows us to be able to process large amounts of data quickly and with computers that are much faster than the average person owns. So I'm going to start off with just some of the basics. The main part and the main thing that you need to remember right off the bat is that you have to sign up and you have to apply to use Google Earth Engine. So if you haven't done that yet, go ahead and just Google Earth Engine, and when you try to use the application, it'll have you apply. Usually it takes around 2 to 3 days at the max. I know when I applied to use it, you have to have a Gmail account. So you put in your Gmail account, you put in the reason for using it, you just put that you're a student, what organization, maybe a little bit of what you plan on doing with it. And then what you're going to do is you're going to just wait, and once you get approval, you'll get an email, you'll get a key, and you'll be allowed to use the software. And once you log in, you'll eventually get to a screen that looks like this, and this is our script editor. Google Earth Engine does all of its processes based on scripts, and so you have the 3 areas here. You have your current scripts that you're working on right here. You're allowed to save them in the browser or in the application. You have different documents that you can upload. These are all, that's assets. You can upload assets. Documents is all the documentation for all the different functions that are pre-built into Earth Engine. You have your code editor right here, your script editor right here, and in this you have some buttons up here, and we'll go through those in just a second. You have your inspector, which allows you to get data from the map itself, which is another portion down here. So see, you have your latitude, longitude, your zoom level. You have your console. This is where any messages that you send in your script or any information that you send in your script, when you have a print or an out statement, it'll go here. And then this is your tasks. This is where you can send different things that you can make within Earth Engine. So if you make any graphs, or if you make any videos, or if you make any CSVs like I've already made here, they're going to be exported to this area, and then they will be sent to your Google Drive once you start using it. The main thing to realize about Google Earth Engine is that it runs on scripts, so it's going to be utilizing JavaScript. I know that there is a way that you can install Python, but currently what works the best in Google Earth Engine and what has the widest availability of functions is going to be your JavaScript. So if you're not familiar with JavaScript, there's a lot of ways to become familiar with it online. Codecademy has some really great resources to get you started. The best way to get better at it is just to work in an environment like this, like Earth Engine. And Earth Engine is really nice for learning JavaScript because you're going to be able to implement your scripts right here and then immediately run them. I know when I was learning JavaScript, I was doing it by learning how to build websites and learning how to do web applications, and that was always very tedious because you had to work in like 3 windows. You had to work in your editor, you had to work in your JavaScript editor, and then you had to work in your HTML editor. And so you're having to save 3 things, and if you didn't save them all, then it was make it a headache if you're trying to figure out where you went wrong or if you copy and pasted something wrong. So here, you're basically going to be able to write out your script, and then you're going to be able to click run, and it'll run it right for you. And if it doesn't do what you want, you will be able to see what's going on right here in the editor. And hopefully the console will also print you out some errors if it finds something that's really wrong with what you've typed. The main application for Google Earth Engine is going to be what's known in wider terms as remote sensing. Remote sensing is images that are sensed remotely. Generally, in our cases, we're going to be working with satellite images, particularly those of the Landsat variety. Remotely sensed images can come from a variety of sources. They can come from LiDAR that's attached to planes, or they can come from thermal cameras that are attached to drones, but the most widely available data for research purposes is going to be coming from the Landsat program, and most cases is going to be Landsat 7. There's Landsat 8, which is the most recent satellite, but it doesn't have as much time on the data, so if you're needing many years worth of data, Landsat 7 is where a lot of pre-existing research is, and where you're going to find a lot of your equations for band math later on, and they're going to be based off of Landsat 7 images. Remote sensing is an extensive field with many different parts to it. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you can get involved in the remote sensing field. Google Earth Engine is just one of the new ones. The thing to remember about remote sensing is it's a very complicated field and there's a lot of data. And that's the biggest problem, is that there's sometimes too much data for us to work with. And so with Google Earth Engine, it's allowed us to take Landsat data and allow us to work with it in ways that we haven't been able to before. The main thing to remember about Landsat 7 is that you're going to have your data, your images, and they're going to be broken up into these different bands. Each of these bands corresponds to a different range, spectral range, which when we get to working with band math, we're going to be isolating specific bands to check for different things such as NDVI or vegetation cover. And then you have to remember your ground resolution. So remember, when you're looking at these images, you cannot do any type of GPS analysis and you can't do any location analysis because you have these resolutions that are 30 meters, which means a point on the ground could be 30 meters really in either direction, X and Y. So they're not reliable for ground coordinates. So Google Earth Engine is not something you're going to use the same way you might use a very precise data product. That would be more something that you would work with a point or a line or a polygon data, and the data that we're working with Landsat is a raster data. So there are cells with different values, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. This is mainly just an introduction to get you familiar with what you'll be working with as far as data, and then what you'll be putting into Google Earth Engine. So let's get back over here, and forgive me if I go back and forth. There's just a lot to cover, and I want to be able to give you a thorough idea of what you'll be working with. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you really quickly the basic getting involved in this editor and getting familiar with it. So we're going to do the basic computer programming 101. Everybody has to do it with anything you do. We're going to do hello world, and so we're going to go print, and then let's see. And then you're going to need your semicolon, and then if we run this, it will print it out here to our console. And so this is basically the process that you're going to use to get any sort of text out here. If you're trying to get a product that's out here, this is just the way basic things to do. The next part is we're going to be printing out an image to our console. So let's try that real quick. Print is what we're going to start off with. Then we have our bracket, and then most of Earth Engine is based on EE dot, and so that's how it runs a lot of these. So you can see you have EE algorithms, EE date range. A lot of these are your functions that you're going to be using that are pre-built. So in order to get an image inside of Earth Engine, which is a way that Earth Engine works, is with images and then with image collections, and we'll get into those in just a second. We have EE dot image. And capitalization is key here, so when you see these capitals, it is important that you abide by them, otherwise it's not going to run it. And then I have a Landsat image that we're going to pull over here. Landsat images all correspond to different values based on the location, time of day, and then from the source of the Landsat satellite. So this is a Landsat 8 image. You can see right here, Landsat 8, and this other value corresponds to a rate at which they were taken. They have different rates at which the satellites fly over the Earth, and so different parts of the Earth get photographed, quotes, photographed different times. And so those images are available in different increments. I think the closest they're available is every 8 days, and then I think they have some larger ones that are only available every so often. So we're going to run this. We'll be able to see that it prints out the data for this image. It allows us to see what it is, an image. It gives us an ID. These are important. These are just what we were talking about. It gives us the number of bands. So these are the bands we were talking about before, and it'll let us know the properties of these bands. I know this looks like a lot, but some of these bands we work with, some of them we don't. And then this is just a whole lot of other data that's important when performing different band math. We're going to get into that, and you'll see why this is important. You have the K1 constant, the K2. These are definitely very important if you're doing any sort of land surface temperature analysis. That's very important. You have a lot of these that are specs that come directly from the manual, but thankfully Google Earth Engine has allowed us to include them right here. So if you need these values, a lot of times what you'll be able to do, if you need them included in a code, instead of having to hard code them for an image, you can simply have this value given to you in here, so you'll be able to pull from that. So that makes it very, very convenient, and it makes you be able to not have to hold a manual on your lap every time you're doing this type of analysis. So it's essentially what we're going to be working with here. Is we're going to be working with a lot of images, and we're going to be working with a lot of data, but then we're going to be working with some functions and some math in order to get products that can actually help us. And this has a lot of really neat applications because we have a wide variety of data that's available in some cases every 8 days. We're able to find changes in the environment. So say there's you can find areas of deforestation. You can find one of the things that even on the Landsat 7 website for the USGS, they were talking about the fires in Fort McMurray right now, that they're trying to figure out, since they have a satellite going over every 8 days, they can determine where the fire is moving or what damage has been done, or even maybe get an idea of what areas have been damaged, or maybe what areas are safe to move back into, or what areas they should be concerned with now. So Google Earth Engine has a lot of really great applications. It's very new. There's not a whole lot of help out there, and so I hope this video and this video series will be able to help you out a little bit more. And if you have any questions, be sure to contact me. I'll put some information in the bottom, and I'll put the resources that I used in this video for you to get a little bit more familiar with it. And we'll be back with episode 1 on getting started.